PTF back with you in the Money Media YouTube channel, in the Money Players podcast as well. We're here to talk about the Rebel Stakes, Oaklawn Park, important Derby prep action. Not technically a win and you're in, but with the 50 points, whoever wins this is going to be in the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby, assuming things stay healthy. Quick weather programming note. Looks like they might have some weather in Hot Springs, Arkansas throughout this week. Some rumors floating around. This card may be scheduled to Sunday. I suppose if there's bad weather, that could change who ends up turning up with two California shippers slated to be here. We'll have you covered in the Money Media YouTube channel. If there are late breaking events, we'll come back to this race and talk about it again later in the week. But right now, me and Mikey P are going to talk about this race. Mikey P, fresh off of giving you a nice 40-1 shot, who ended up running second last week. I hope you back-wheeled it, Mikey P.
No back wheel here, but did use the horse in the race. I do think that race set up for long shots. And when you find a favorite you don't like, you need to take some shots in these Derby preps, and you never know who's going to pop up. So lots of big balloons if you connected there at Fairgrounds on Saturday.
Let's get on to, we know resting on laurels or Laurel over here. We're going to look ahead to this Rebel Stakes. Really interesting race. A lot of ways to go. We're going to start off by talking about a horse that might be the favorite. Number 11, Speed King. This horse ran really well in the Southwest. I was in a hurry to discount the form a little bit with some of the other speed not breaking that day. But this horse led all the way through legitimately fast sectionals and showed some tenacity late, holding off that late run from Sandman, who we'll get to in a minute. I do think this horse is likely to face another tough pace scenario here. I can't blame those who say this is the horse to beat at what might be the favorite. I'm probably leaning against. Where are you with Speed King in this spot from also this potentially tricky post run outside the other speed?
I do think that Speed King is a legitimate horse. I do think that he will end up in the gate for the Kentucky Derby if he stays healthy. He's shown progression. He's done very well with the increases in distance. But I do think that this is a nuclear pace that's setting up in this Rebel. There's plenty of horses that are stretching out from 6 furlong races. You have horses that want to be up close, horses like Innovator, that certainly are going to go straight to the front. You have the California contingent that always has plenty of speed. So I do think Speed King is up against it in this race from a pace standpoint. If he proves that he can handle that and go on, then he's a serious contender for the Derby.
Let's move to the next logical horse to talk about, the one who almost ran him down. Sandman walked out of the gate last time, had a very tricky trip, really turned a lot of heads and impressed people last time. What do you think of him this time? Keeping in mind, we'll give our official selections at the end of the video, along with an interesting long shot each. We'll talk through the field here as we go through this Rebel Stakes.
Well, Sandman likes to come from off the pace, and he gets the ideal post, the ideal setup in this race. And he's another one that's shown progression. If you look at his buyer numbers, 73, 79, 89, 92. So this is the kind of horse that's, coming into his own as a 3-year-old. This is another opportunity to take a big step forward. He's going to have no excuses, really. There's plenty of speed that is going to be in front of him, and that's probably going to be backing up around the turn. I do think if he breaks well, he has to behave himself, but he is a huge, huge contender in this race.
While we're talking about the Southwest, we might as well throw in the horse that finished third in there, Tiz-tastic. This one got the worst of it at the drawn out in the 13, but I have to say, this horse has some things to like. I know you had made a case before the last race. It wasn't a bad effort. I mean, you could say, well, Speed King was more impressive because of the sectionals. Sandman was more impressive because of the trip. But boy, this horse has a chance to be forgotten. Is he still on your radar as somebody who liked him last time?
He is on my radar. As I mentioned in the last video that we did for the Southwest, this horse is a grinder. He just, continues at the same speed while everyone else is slowing down late. He had some trouble in that Southwest State. Go back and watch that replay. When it was time to go, he lacked room. He was definitely in tight there, and he just did his grind down the stretch to end up being third in the race. So there were legitimate horses in that race. I don't think he necessarily had a fair chance. And Steve Asmussen, come on. Look what he did this past weekend from a horse from an outside post at a big price. You get Jose Ortiz now, who is riding incredibly. So I do think this horse has a definite chance.
Let's go from one Asmussen to the other. Number 6 publisher, been working in company with Tistastic. According, I haven't seen a clocker report or anything, but these look like good works. That last one, especially on the workout tab. This horse just had a horror trip in the Southwest. Multiple points of meaningful trouble, and he was 50-1 that time. So this horse has got to be a huge price. As you point out, we didn't need much, go back very far to see Asmussen runners, 3-year-olds improving quickly and hitting the board at big prices. He's another one I'm keeping on the radar for sure. Do you prefer Tistastic to him, or do you see them as of a piece?
I prefer Tistastic more just from his class right now. Publisher, while he did race in that Southwest last time, that was coming off a maiden race. So this horse is still a maiden now. You get a big jockey change here. You get Flavian Pratt, who just won the Eclipse Award, top jockey in the country, has his choice of these 3-year-olds every weekend, it seems. That's a big change for him. He had absolute trouble in the last race, was shut off in the stretch, no chance there. Do I prefer him to the other Asmussen? No, but would he surprise me to hit the board? Not really.
Let's talk about Coal Battle, the one runner in here. We've been very fortunate on the In the Money Media Network to have our pal Eric DeCoster working up our official In the Money Media top 10 list. This horse hasn't been on it, but he's consistently been just outside the top 10. Won the first race in this series, the Smarty Jones. I really love that pace line, going back and looking at Timeform US to see a horse that puts up a fast early number, then settles in the middle of the race, pace number-wise, and then really finishes full of run. This might be a sprinter's pedigree as I look in it. Horse really isn't quite fast enough, but I still think he's a little intriguing and a horse who I'm going to end up with on at least some tickets somewhere, maybe more than that, depending on the price. Where are you with Coal Battle?
I think that he's a chance to be a good story. He's a horse that won a key race in the Springboard Mile from off the pace. Then shown some versatility back in the Smarty Jones when able to control the pace. He seems to really handle every scenario. That race at Delta was a tricky race also that he won back in November. So he's an improving type. He needs to get faster, but he's a good story. And I think a horse that really tries very hard all the time. He has a perfect post here. The trip will be curious, but he's one that is interesting me, maybe not on the win end. I would probably use him underneath.
Let's talk about another good story. Kenny McPeek, obviously, what an achievement last year with what he did for the Oaks and Derby. He's got a horse on the Derby Trail this year named Hypnus. Made his debut, a winning one over that sloppy going at Fairgrounds. Ignored in the wagering that day. Probably had a race flow that favored him in that spot. But McPeek's runners do improve more than your average trainer going from start 1 to start 2. I don't know. I'm probably leaning against off a one-number horse where that one number was with the setup in the slop, but the Derby Trail's more fun when Kenny McPeek's on it. What do you think of Hypnus?
I do like him. And if you look at his pedigree, I mean, that's a grade 1 winning dam there in Dream Tree. First time out, was able to win. Now, did get a setup. Yinzer came back this past weekend at Fairgrounds out of that race to win. This horse, I do think, has some possibilities. Just with the breeding, he has some improvement, and there's a ton of buzz around this horse. If you listen to the Steve Bick show, there's a lot of positive reports coming from his workouts at Fairgrounds with those guys there last weekend. So lots of positive things coming from this horse. They show up here off a maiden win into this grade 2 Rebel, and McPeek won it last year. So dangerous to me.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, there's some people yelling at the screen because there's two very well-fancied runners we haven't even gotten to yet. We'll get to them. We'll hit our thank you to our sponsor real quick. We'll get back with the official selections. One of these days, I'm going to get my act together, and we're going to have a graphic for these official selections, too. I probably could have done it for this video, but I just ran out of time. Let's talk about these two who also have a chance to be up or near the head of the market. They're both West Coast invaders, and we're going to start with the one who was at one point number 1 on Eric DeCoster's list. I know you gave him a hard time for that, cynic that you are. I think currently he's number 2. The horse is number 10, Bullard. This horse has been a fascinating prospect since the first start. I agree with Eric that this horse did not lose much in defeat in the San Vicente last time, had license to be short that day, was ceding a major tactical advantage to Barnes. I agree it's put up or shut up time for this one, but that last workout to me makes him look back like he's headed in the right direction. So I'm going to see the glass half full. I have a feeling you're going to make a glass half empty comparison given your on the record comments about Bullard to this point.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this horse wasn't even listed in the Kentucky Derby future wager this past weekend. Now, I do love the barn, but he got a perfect setup there in that November 17th Bob Hope Stakes. I do think that this horse could be a sprinter. I really thought had no excuse in the San Vicente. I know he was facing Barnes, but I do think this horse needs to prove it. Well, this is a great spot to do that. They're shipping in. They're going a mile and a 16th here. So plenty of chances for this horse to show what he is. I just am not so sure that, he wants to crack this nut. So we'll see. Good luck to you. Good luck to Eric. He will not be on my tickets.
You don't buy the idea that being short, potential excuse, being against the flow, potential excuse, and then the nature of the trip too was a little bit less than perfect. He was very wide there on a day when I thought ground loss mattered. You're not buying any of that.
Well, I personally didn't like him in that spot that day. And I really don't like him here. I don't know what kind of trip he's going to get. He could be a closing sprinter type horse. Now, he's going to get a setup here, plenty of speed in front of him, but where is he at? Is he going to be mid-pack and then making an early move, or does he have to come from way off of it? He's a very tricky read to me, and the price is going to be lower than I want.
I hear that last point, especially. I would like to see mid-pack closing. I would like to think coming out of a 7 furlong race, he's got the tactical speed to get the jump on the likes of Sandman, but still will not be up there in the vanguard hitting with those sprinters. So I was thinking he could trip out. We'll see how it plays out. Let's talk about a horse. I mean, I think you can make a case this horse could be the favorite in this spot, depending on what the vibes are. Around number 5, Madaket Road, representing the powerhouse barn of Bob Baffert. He's just won this race 8 times. I'm told that's good. He did not look great last time in the Lewis, but absolute excuse. Team tactics fully in play there as your boy, Citizen Bull, was allowed to waltz on the lead. That worked against a runner like Madaket Road. There's going to be plenty of pace to set up a late run this time. Bullard handled him easily back in the Bob Hope, but that was Madaket Road's first race, so I'm not going to take that form too literally. He's a horse I'm going to use. I'm not going to key. What do you think of Madaket Road?
I don't want him at all, honestly. I mean, I like Citizen Bull in that Robert B. Lewis. I thought that Madaket Road should have been second there, but when he was trying to go through in on the rail, he ended up being outfinished by Rodriguez and outfinished pretty, substantially there. I'm not sure that this horse wants the 2 turns. Now, I mean, it's a Baffert, it's IRAD. This horse could bounce back off the ship. But again, very short price for a horse that really, I didn't like that effort last time. So there are just others in here that I prefer far more and would be a takeout reducer from my standpoint.
I get it. I mean, I'm not going to get beat by Baffert in this spot, but I think he's going to be short enough. Given the attendant question marks that you do such a good job of highlighting. We'll come back in a minute with selections, but want to let you know that this video is brought to you by our friends at twinspires.com. They are back in the handicapping tournament space in a very big way. The Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, tournament's latest major. You can buy your way into that for $5,000, or you can win your way in with tournaments nearly every day over at twinspires.com. Simply go to twinspires.com and navigate over to the tournaments tab and get involved. Great player-friendly terms and something really exciting at the end of the rainbow here with the revised KDBC. Okay, as promised, time for our official selections. Mikey, who are you going with?
I'm going to take Sandman on top. I know that he's going to be one of the top choices in this race, but the money's going to be spread around. It's a big field. There's no real dominant horse. You're not going to see a 3-5 East Avenue type number here. Now, he needs to behave himself out of the gate, but I do think that he is progressing. He's ultra talented and he gets a setup here. This is what he wants. He's proven over this racetrack. So I do think Sandman has a massive chance to win this race.
What if I asked you for one at a little bit more of a price, maybe more of a B-level contender as far as winning, but somebody who can hit the board at a number?
I will keep Tistastic on my radar. I did like him in the Southwest. I thought that things didn't necessarily go his way. He still improved his figure there. His grinding style is one that, it's difficult to navigate, but I do think he's going to be moving forward late. I like the fact that Jose Ortiz gets up and Asmussen's barn going extremely well right now. He's going to be an overlay in the race. So Tistastic on the radar for me.
I'll do it in the opposite order. I'll start with my long shot. I'll try the other Asmussen runner publisher. I understand what you're saying about this maiden being tested for class, but I think sometimes a horse like this, the crowd will even overreact to that, and there is a legitimate chance. Now, who knows? Maybe with Asmussen having a 50-1 win last week, we're going to pay a little bit of a tax for that, but this horse is going to be a huge price and will be in my various exotic wagers. That's the number 6 publisher. Mike, for a long shot, going with 13, Tistastic. On top, probably not a surprise from the way I talked about this race. I'm going to stick with Bullard. I'm going to believe. I'm going to say those people who put the future odds together or future field together were overlooking this one. He's going to come back onto the Derby trail in a big way on Saturday. We'll see if I'm right about that. We'll see if Mikee's right about Sandman. I should point out Sandman would also be, no doubt about it, A-level contender for me based on all the cases that you made. Again, monitor the weather. We're going to have a lot more on this race if the situation changes. In the Money Media YouTube channel, subscribe to that. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. In the Money Players Podcast. And if you want more on this whole Rebel Stakes Day card, we're going to have a special show for that, whether it's on Saturday or Sunday, over on our Plus service, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. We'll see you next time.